Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So tonight, what I thought I would do is I'm going to share with you what codependency is, where it comes from, and my belief, which has developed over the past 44 years of me being in the field of addictions and recovery, and my own personal recovery. I'm a recovering codependent myself. Began 40 years ago in Al-Anon. In fact, this morning I started my day out with a CODA meeting. So recovery in codependency is something I know a lot about, which is why I specialize in it at work. And what I want to hopefully give tonight is some clarity, maybe some expansion of the ways we think about codependency. And I'm going to start off with actually not going to codependency directly, but I'm going to start off with what in my field is oftentimes called the drama triangle. Has anybody ever heard of the drama triangle? I know a few people here and there. Well, I'm going to put it up on the board real quick, and we'll talk about it, and my guess is you'll find that you can really relate to it. So this is a drama triangle. This was created, back in the 80s, I guess. Actually originally called the Karpman Triangle because a psychologist by the name of Stephen Karpman developed it based on the dynamics he saw from couples who came in with conflict resolution issues. What we now see is that this actually is far more common than we ever thought. So let me give you an idea of what this actually evolves into. Does anybody in here have like any negative self-talk? Yeah, I see a few, yeah. On occasion, right? Just once in a while. Not like it goes on all the time, right? Keeps us up at night or any of that stuff. So what I want you to first understand is that what I'm getting ready to put up here is not just about here, it's also about here. This goes on in here all the frigging time. And as a result, this is how we interact with the world around us and how we make sense of the world around us. So first thing is that internal voice that does this is our persecutor, and we feel victimized by it. Anybody in here sometimes just wish you could shut it off and yet find yourself unable to, right? Feel a little helpless to get it to shut off at night before you go to bed, right? Feeling like a victim of our own internal persecutor. Is that making sense so far? We very often also then, of course, need a rescuer, or we will drive ourselves crazy. And I don't mean that just metaphorically. It may be crazy. We may make ourselves really crazy. We may make ourselves so anxious that we cannot stand to be in our own skins. We may make ourselves so depressed we become suicidal. So I mean that very literally. We will make ourselves sick with this, if that's all there is. We may not survive it. So we need a part of us that will rescue us. Here's anybody in here ever make up excuses for their behavior other than me? Right? Yeah. Just a little bit rationalizing. Well, you said this to me first, therefore it's okay that I did that, right? Or those kinds of things. Well, it's not that bad that I didn't show up when I told them I was going to. After all, blah, 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 right? So we do this within our own mind, 24 hours a day. This voice will somehow rationalize, make excuses for us, tell us it's not that bad, tell us it's somebody else's fault. I wouldn't be this way if it weren't for mom and dad. I wouldn't be this way if it weren't for this having happened. Something, this rescues us from this dynamic. Are you with me so far? Is this sounding familiar to anybody? Yeah, because this is how we think. And let me tell you, folks, this is not unique to those of us in this room by any stretch of the imagination. This is how every human being on the face of the earth, with rare exception, like maybe the Dalai Lama, or somebody like that, this is how humans make sense of the world. Everyone has an internal, depending on your orientation, internal critic. I'm using this particular model, so we're talking about a persecutor. We all have somebody or some aspect of us that rescues us from that, usually by blaming someone else or some situation. And we oftentimes feel that we are being victimized by our own minds, that we can't help it. How many times have you said that to yourself? I just can't help it. I can't go to, it's just my anxiety is too big, I can't help it. This is too big, I can't help it. And yet what we're talking about is our own mind. If I can't help that, I got some severe problems. You know, I may not have the skills, I may not have the know-how, but the good news is I can learn. I really can learn. We also do this on the outside, our relationships, how we interpret things. We take this that goes on the inside and we project it to the outside. Think about this for just a moment. Have you ever heard a news report that did not revolve around this dynamic? Think about it. Every news report you will ever hear, there's somebody who is a victim, there's some country or some group of people that's a victim, there's somebody persecuting them, and there's somebody who should be hopping in to save everybody. Very often in our country we think it should be us, right? But this dynamic drives the news. Have you ever been to a movie that did not have this dynamic? We call it drama for a reason. How about a book? Anybody enjoy reading? This is what they all revolve around. There's a bad guy, there's some good guys, and there's somebody who's being victimized. This is literally how all human beings interact within and without. And this dynamic, paired with the codependency, is both what supports it and what helps to maintain it. So these dynamics are very important for us to begin to understand and take accountability for. When I find myself persecuting myself, I need to take responsibility for that because after all, it is my mind, and take a step back and go, wait a minute, hold on, that's not true about me. Let me interrupt that and go in another place with it. And there are loads of tools and videos and all kinds of tools today that can help us redirect this so that we can begin to step out of the triangle. The emotions that run this triangle are blame, shame, guilt, anger, and fear. These emotions not only perpetuate it, they keep us stuck in it. We are afraid to set healthy boundaries with people because they might get upset with us. They might not like us anymore. But so-and-so, how can I set boundaries with my mom because I know she just does this stuff because she loves me? Let me rescue. But my child, if I set a boundary, what happens if they don't come home one night, because they get mad at me, right? So the internal as well as the external runs on blame, shame, guilt, anger, and fear. And they keep us trapped in this triangle and tell us that there's no way out, which is not true. There is a way out. But part of that is that we've got to begin recognizing that this is what is driving it. Anybody in here ever remember a time you didn't have a sense of shame? We have to go way back, don't we? Because most of us, even, knee-high to a grasshopper, remember feeling ashamed, feeling guilty about. So I'm not sure what we thought at 5 years old, what we could possibly have been ashamed of, but most of us remember having felt that. Feeling guilty, right? Being angry because we felt helpless, being afraid. These things continue to drive our lives as long as I stay in this triangle. We'll begin to look at how these two fit together. I wrote this real quick up on the board because I need something to trigger my memory and to point to. You have this in your handout. This is the definition we use at Pavillon for what codependency is. It has been modified in the past year. This is based on the 1990 definition that was agreed upon at the National Conference for Codependency. The word that was added is beliefs, because you cannot sustain behaviors unless there are beliefs that support it. So virtually this is still the same, it just has that one word there. So what is codependency? Codependency are learned behaviors and beliefs. The good news is it's learned. That means we can unlearn it. We don't have to be stuck in the triangle. We have learned to be in the triangle. That are expressed by dependencies on people and things outside of the self. Anybody got any of that? Yeah. And that can be anything. And I want to say this to you because I want this to really come home. Learn beliefs and behaviors that are expressed by dependencies on people and things outside of the self. Any idea what that's actually the definition of? Addiction. Oh, you mean we're like those people? Yeah. Yeah, we are. Whether you ever picked up a drink or a drug or not. Because codependency is about being dependent on people and things outside of the self. That's what addiction is. Chemical dependency is one form of addiction, but it is only one form. We have Gambler Anonymous, right? Gambling addictions, shopping addictions, one of my personal favorites, food addictions, another one of my family favorites, right? So chemical dependency is only one form of addiction. It is the one that insurances will pay for, but it is only one form. Bottom line is codependency is the foundational addiction that supports and maintains all of the other addictions, all the other expressions of codependency. The one thing that chemical dependency has is that there is that little part of the brain that gets hijacked. So there is a biological component to chemical dependency as well. And to be honest with you, we're also learning that there's probably a biological component to codependency too, but that's still being explored through epigenetics. So I'm not going to go into that because I don't have enough information yet, but that's kind of fascinating. These dependencies include neglecting and diminishing of one's own identity. One of the things that I get asked a lot is, but isn't it good to be caring about what other people think? Don't you want other people to be happy? Well, yeah. The question isn't about whether or not we want to do for, to be caring about, to provide service for, to help others. That's all good stuff. We need more of that. The catch is neglecting and diminishing of one's own identity. When I do for you more than I do for me, when I care more about your opinion than I do my own, when I value you and your well-being more than I value my own, that's the piece that makes it codependent. We don't want to give up our love and caring for people. But with codependency, there's no balance. There's no balance. And we lose ourselves in what ends up being the false self. So the false self that emerges as a result of this dynamic is often expressed through compulsive habits, addictions, and other disorders that further increase alienation from a person's true, well, it says in there, true identity. I put true self, because to me they're the same thing, fostering a sense of shame. So what does that mean? False self, true self, what is that about? Well, one of the things that attracted me to working at Pavillon, a substance abuse inpatient treatment facility, is that the founders, part of the founding belief of Pavillon, was that we are not, in fact, humans having or seeking out perhaps a spiritual experience, but rather that we are, in fact, perfect spiritual beings having a human experience. Very, very different approach. So my true self gets covered up by the false self that emerges out of those dynamics. Is this making sense so far? Awesome. I did not have time to put up the other part of the definition because I was running a little late here, but let me go into that. Because I'm going to start talking about how does this happen. If you look at the second part of the definition, it talks about how we learn. And it says patterns of bonding within the family system. To survive psychologically and socially within the family system, the child adopts patterns of thinking, acting, and feeling that seem to get their needs met and to keep them safe, but finally are self-negating in themselves. Because as little kids, we may be little, but we're not stupid. We know that literally our existence and our very life depends on these big people around us, right? And we're not able, when we're little tiny kids, to express what we think we need from them. But we know we can't survive without them. So they're really important in our lives. We need to keep them happy with us, or we're not going to be around. And we know that. Again, verbalizing it, probably not. But instinctually, yes, we know that. And so it is in our best interest to learn how to survive and get our needs met by these big people when we have no way, or very limited ways, let me rephrase that, very limited ways of expressing what our needs are. And so if I'm a little kid, if I'm a little 2-year-old child, how do I express and let you know I need something? This was a question. Cry. Thank you. Cry? Cry, did somebody say that? Yes, cry. What else?
Throw a tantrum.
Throw a tantrum. Oh, they're fun. And let me tell you, when my oldest granddaughter was really little, she was throwing a tantrum or something, and it was absolutely hilarious. I got down on the floor, because, when you're doing it and you're 2, it's really kind of cute, right? At 16, not so much. And I got down on the floor and started doing the exact same thing she did. She was outraged. She got up from the floor and stood there and looked at me and said, "Granny, no!" She was very upset that I was doing that. But she thought she was going to get her way if she threw a tantrum, right? What else?
Do something bad.
Do something bad to get that attention. Absolutely. What else? How about be mommy or daddy's big little helper? Be the one who shows up and is the star. The one who always tries to do what's best or what they think mommy and daddy will like. Become the future people pleasers. So yeah, we try because we have no other way of communicating. We are manipulating, that is not a bad word, we're manipulating our parents into trying to get our needs met, because that's all we can do when we're little kids. We don't have any other options. When we are little, and some of you may know this, some of you may not, but all of our brain is not quite online yet. Little kids don't think like adults do, because part of their brain is literally not online. I think it's the beta waves are not online yet. And our brains don't actually mature till we're in our mid-20s. Think about that, our mid-20s. Our basic beliefs about our value as a human being and our place in the world, are you ready for this, are formed by the time we're like 5. 5. No wonder we have issues, because a little 5-year-old made those decisions based on how they understood the world at 5. Now think about that for a second. Do you ever find yourself thinking, well, that's not fair? Anybody in here ever feel that? Yeah. And like, how old are we? Well, a 5-year-old has shown up, right? So a lot of what codependency really is normal human development. It's not because we're screwed up any more than anybody else is. It is normal human development based on how our brains mature and the psychology and biology that happens in the interaction of those things. So imagine a little 2-year-old for a moment. And mommy and or daddy have gone to work, right? And I mean, like how long we'll go with a 10-hour day. That's probably reasonable. For me, it was a drive time, right? So for a 2-year-old, how long is a 10-hour day? That was the question. Yeah. I mean, it's like freaking forever, right? To a 2-year-old. It is just like I mean, it is truly forever, because little kids don't watch the clock. They can't read it. They're always in the now. All they know is it has been forever since they saw mommy and daddy. And so when mommy or daddy comes in that evening, what do they want? I'm sorry? Attention. Thank you. That's right, they want attention. And so what do we do if we're good parents? We pick them up, we give them a hug, right? Tell them what good kids, how much we missed them. We might ask about their day, because we want to be good parents, But then there may be other children or just other things like, I need to get undressed and put on my shorts or, make supper, do those kind of things. But does a 2-year-old understand any of that? No, they haven't seen me in forever. And so maybe they need a little bit, so I pick them up and I hug them some more, and I tell them again how much I missed them and I hope they had a good day, and I snuggle with them a little bit more, and then I put them down again because I have other things I need to go do. I'm the adult, right? I have other things I have to go do. But little Johnny or little Susie, but mommy, daddy, and I said, just like, give me a minute. Just give me a minute. I've been working all day. Just give me a minute. Sound familiar to anybody? Now, how might that little 2-year-old interpret that? Rejection. I did something wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm not important. And the list goes on, right? Any of us have any of that? I won't ask. Because I know, because I have not yet met a human being who does not have a core of what I call not enoughness. It's part of the human condition. It hasn't got anything to do with addiction. It hasn't, in terms of chemical dependency. It doesn't have anything to do with us being more screwed up than the rest of the world because we go to Al-Anon or AA or whatever the A is that we go to. It's because we're human. There is nobody to blame in this, folks. It happens simply because we are human. And because we're making decisions at 2 that are going to be affecting us literally the rest of our lives. That I'm making a decision that I'm not important. Is that true in what I just did? No, I'm the adult, I got other things I gotta do. Has nothing to do with this child. But little Johnny or Susie has no way of understanding that. Not because they're stupid or self-centered or, any of those things that we tend to label, but because they're 2. And their brains simply can't be objective because their brains aren't fully online yet. The difficulty how it becomes codependency is that those misunderstandings, those misinterpretations become layered, and they become the foundation for our beliefs about who we are and about how we need to be interacting with others and whether or not we're valuable to others. All based on a 2-year-old's understanding. Think about that for a minute. I have often gone, really, are we sure about this? But that is, in fact, what happens. And so we have the 2-year-old making decisions based on their understanding and their misunderstanding of what is driving mommy and daddy. Because little 2-year-olds, up until we're actually closer to our 20s, are egocentric, which means we view everything as being about us. Again, that is normal if you're 2. That is normal if you're 10. It is not normal if you're 72. Right? I should be through that by now. Some days better than others. But at 2, at 5, at 10, this is totally normal. Totally normal. Everything is about me. So I, therefore, no matter what mommy and daddy are saying or doing, I interpret it as meaning something about me. Does it? No. Because, my mom and dad had moms and dads. Did any of yours? Yeah, right? And they had moms and dads who had moms and dads. So again, it's not about blaming anybody. And those moms and dads were all human. And they were all driven by a 2-year-old making misunderstandings of what their parents did and what they meant. And so we end up growing up and solidifying those childhood beliefs that were made when we were just a little tiny, and they become what we today in the addictions field call codependency. So at Pavillon, those codependency roles, I'll just kind of write them over here, I guess, I have a little more room, are caretaker, people pleaser, martyr, compulsive performer, whoops, perfectionist, and tap dancer. This is the model that we use. And you may notice as I begin to go through and I'm just going to hit the highlights. You've got far more detailed information in the handout. I'm going to go through each of these and just touch on some of the common dynamics and expressions in terms of behaviors. And what I want to remind everybody is that I've never met any human being alive that doesn't have a touch of this. Never. Now, there may be some, because obviously I have not met everybody in the world. But my guess is that there will be a rare exception, because it is part of simply how human beings develop. So the caretaker. This was one of my this one and people pleasing were the two that I manifested mostly in my youth. The caretaker is that person who is going to help you whether you want it or not. They are always there to be the first to volunteer. Sure, here, let me get that for you. Let me do that for you. Oh, I'll help you out. And very often, on the surface, that looks very helpful. And they especially in our culture, get a lot of kudos. You know, very often they will be volunteering for a bazillion different committees within the community. Very civic oriented very often. And it looks very good. And it certainly does a lot of positive things in the community and very often within the family unit. And it's all based on, I need to help you. But did you hear what I just said? I need to help you. Because for caretakers, love equals being needed. If I'm not needed by someone, I don't feel whole. It feels like something is missing inside of me if I cannot be of value and be helpful to someone. So what that means is that in my relationships, I will always be here, and whoever you are will always be here. Because I need you to be needy so that I feel loved and cared about and important. Is this sounding about right, folks? Yeah, I'm sure you may know somebody like that. Not that any of us would have that problem, but people we know out there might. Excuse me, let me get a little water here. So with caretaking, it's not that I don't care, but it rather is that my caring is unfortunately so rooted into my need to be needed that I may look like I'm helping, but the end result is that I keep you needy because I keep doing for you so that you never have to learn how to do for yourself. So I've got my 30-year-old daughter or son still coming home for me to wash their clothes. Unfortunately, that is not unusual. You know? I've got a 30-year-old who still doesn't know how to do their own checkbook. Of course, I guess they don't do that too much anymore. But because I'm always doing for, I rob the other person of learning how to do for themselves, which keeps us like this. And if they decide that, wow, I don't like this, just, let me grow up, then we've got some friction going on, right? But look at all I do for you. I love you. I just want to help. Do you hear the drama triangle? The guilt, the shame. So codependency, while it is normal, is not particularly healthy because we stay trapped in the drama triangle. And as long as we are blaming anyone, ourselves or anyone else, we stay stuck. The caretaker is always needing other people to need them in order for them to feel whole. And so while they may look like they're encouraging, supporting you, yes, honey, let me do that application for you. Let me get that done for you. It also always undermines. Is this making sense, folks? When we look at the people pleaser, the people pleaser. The people pleaser cannot bear any kind of conflict. Even the thought of conflict is like, they just can't stand it. Just can't stand it. Cannot tolerate the idea that anyone, like let's say I do a lecture and there's 100 people and I get 99 reviews that say, oh my God, that was awesome. And one review that goes, it was okay. Where do I focus if I'm the people pleaser? Zoom, right there. Why did they not think I was wonderful? What did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, I've got to fix this somehow. So the people pleaser thrives on the approval of others. So the people pleasers, and I include myself in that, we tend to be chameleons. Now, while again, that could be a useful skill if it is deliberate. But the problem with people pleasing is that it becomes who I identify myself as. I lose who I am. Who do you want me to be today? And that's who I will do my best to be. What would you like? Typical people pleaser. Okay, sweetheart, where would you like to go for dinner tonight? Oh, anywhere you want to go, honey. Well, I was thinking about Italian. Oh my God, he knows I don't like Italian that much. Why doesn't he ever take me anywhere I want to go? That's fine, sweetheart. Italian's great. That's okay with me. So people pleasers never have their own opinion that they voice. They have opinions. We have opinions. But that doesn't mean they come out so that anybody else can hear them. We keep hoping that magically the people around us that we love will be able to read our minds and intuitively know what it is we want and then take care of us. To make us feel important, that we are loved, cared about. But consider this for a moment. If I don't love and care about me and I keep trying to show you how I care about you, what am I telling you in terms of what I feel about me? Yeah, I'm telling you I don't count. And if I keep telling you I don't count, why would you treat me like I do? So there again is the downside. There's nothing wrong with wanting the people you love to be happy. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. Again, we need more of that. The problem is when I don't count just as much as the people I care about. Where I don't love me and take care of me as much as I'm taking care of you and making sure that you're happy. And after a while, after a few decades of doing that, very often we have no idea what it is we do want. What is important anymore? We lose it. We just, there's what do you want to do? I have no idea. I have no idea. I mean, to this day, if you ask me how I feel, very often I have to pause because I'm not sure. I modeled what do I think they want me to feel, right? For so very long that it still is difficult at times for me to be honest with me about what feelings I'm actually having, much less express them, because it might upset somebody. And as a people pleaser, anything that even resembles the possibility of disapproval or conflict, it's like, it's just really uncomfortable. And so the people pleaser keeps everybody happy except themselves. And what's really insane, maybe some of y'all can identify with this. Does anybody in here ever struggle receiving compliments? You notice my hand's up, right? Yeah, so then you can answer this question. When somebody gives you a compliment, what do you do in here? Even if it doesn't come out your mouth, what do you do in here?
Discount it.
Thank you. Yeah, we do, don't we? So even if the people around us are telling us that we're important, that they care about us, what are we doing with it? We're discounting it. So how are we ever going to fill up when we keep rejecting what is being given to us? Part of the dynamic of these roles, like the caretaker, always doing for, right? Have you ever offered to help a caretaker? Anybody in here identify it with any caretaking qualities? Got a few of us. So what do we do if somebody offers to help?
I got it myself.
Thank you. I got it. Yes, and yet so often end up feeling exhausted and overwhelmed because we take on so much and do so much, and yet when somebody does offer, we say, oh no, we've got it. So again, we set ourselves up to maintain that emptiness inside without any help from anybody else. We just keep doing it to ourselves. It's part of in 12-step recovery, step 2, we talk about insanity. This is it. This is the foundational insanity we're talking about. Any thoughts or questions so far? Anybody relating to what I'm saying? Okay, well that's good. All right, so let's go on to the next one, the martyr. Ah, yes, the martyr. Oh, what was that show? Seinfeld. Anybody remember Seinfeld or Rhoda, for those of us who may be a few decades older? Remember how the mothers on those shows were? Do you remember? Oh, they, go ahead. It's all right. Don't worry about me. I'm all right. There's your martyr. There's your martyr. The martyr needs to suffer. Their problems need to be bigger and better than anybody else's. And you need to recognize that. You need to see how much I'm suffering. Because if you don't recognize it, then I need to suffer a little more. Because suffering's no good if I'm not recognized for it. And so I will tell you all about my problems, but I will tell you how it's okay. It's okay. It's not that bad. While I'm making it bigger and bigger and bigger. And those friends who try to help me, who maybe make some good suggestions, I let them know that that's a marvelous suggestion for them. But here's all of the reasons why it won't work for me. The martyr is a great yes butter. Yes, but. Yes, but. Great idea, but. So the martyr gets their sense of importance by how much they suffer. From that sense of kind of convoluted, I suffer so much, and that shows you how strong I am. Because I can take on more than anybody else. And so that's the reason why I don't take anybody's suggestion, because if it actually works, I can't suffer. And then I won't know who I am. My sense of value will go away because that's how I measure it. Are you noticing the theme here that there's no innate valuing of self? Again, it all comes from outside. Remember this? Dependency on people and things outside of the self. And so all of these roles, we're all trying to get our sense of value, our sense of esteem, our sense of worth. We're trying to get filled up by those outside of us in ways that never work because we will sabotage it. We will discount it. We will say, I've got it. We will deny people trying to help us to actually relieve our burdens. We will push that away. So we end up staying stuck in the triangle. We stay stuck in being angry, stay stuck in being afraid, stay stuck at feeling guilty, stay stuck at feeling victimized by ourselves, ultimately, though we may act it out and other people appear to be doing that to us. But keeping in mind that unless I let them, they can't do it to me. Because again, going back to the triangle, where does it happen first? In here. This is where I become a victim. The compulsive performer. This one is one that is highly valued in our culture. This is that compulsive workaholic, right? The one who's always doing, whose sense of worth and value comes from what I do, not who I am. So, and what do we do in our culture? We'll go, hi, I'm Shannon. Well, what do you do? Right? That's like the second question. After who are you, it's what do you do? And so that's what we identify ourselves with. My name is Shannon, but here's where my value comes from. And so compulsive performers need to always be performing. And those of you who've heard the lecture at Pavillon, the example I so often use is Robin Williams, because he was an absolutely phenomenal improv comedian. There are many out there who are just as good as he was, but I don't know that there were any better, at least not that I've seen so far. He was amazing. And when he was out there, he was on, wasn't he? But what happened to Robin when the curtain went down? So did Robin. Because the compulsive performer thrives on the applause, on the attention, on the accolades. Look at all that I do. And it's always the curtain goes down, it's get prepared for the next show. Go to the next project. Go for the next award. And so the compulsive performer is never able to just really enjoy what they have now, because they're always on to the next project. Always busy doing. Very often, if there's nothing to do, they're incredibly uncomfortable and will actually go out and create some chaos or create a need so that they can go in and be busy again. And if they happens to be in the position of being a spouse or a parent, I do this so that I can take care of you, so that we have the way of life that we both agreed we wanted. So that's why I'm never home, because I'm out doing for you. That's what we wanted, right? So there's very little intimacy in any of these. Some of them may look a little more intimate than others, but intimacy is based on honesty and being present. I'm so busy taking care of everybody else, I don't take care of me. I'm busy people pleasing, trying to keep everybody else happy. So you don't know who I am. I'm suffering so much, I need you to see my suffering, but I can't let you know that behind all of that, I really feel worthless. And that's the only way I know how to feel like I have any value. But do I tell you that? Oh no. Because then you might agree with me that I am that worthless. I got to stay busy, stay doing, because if I ever stop, I don't exist anymore. I don't have anything behind the doingness that says who I am has value. So all of these are that false self, that we come to think that's who we are. I am the CEO. I am a doctor. I am a lawyer. I am a counselor. No, those are things I do. That is not who I am. That is not who I am. But because that's where I keep looking outside of me for that value, I come to think that that is who I am. And that keeps me stuck because it becomes too scary to let it go. Think for just a moment. Just take one moment, if you would, please. And just think about if you could not if you were laying in a bed and you could not do anything, you couldn't help anybody, you couldn't make anybody's day any better, you couldn't be busy doing anything, you were just laying in a bed, how would you feel about yourself? Anybody think they would still have a lot of feeling of self-worth? Yeah, it gets kind of scary, doesn't it? Because without all of that outside stuff, especially in our culture, we don't value the inside. Our culture doesn't value who we are, it values what we do. And so that gets reinforced. And yet, we reach an age, though many jobs have mandatory retirements. I was fortunate in that I got a chance to go back and work a couple of days a week doing what I love, but that's not true for everybody. And many people, when they retire, develop addictions because they can't stand just being with themselves. Anybody in here remember COVID? The joys, right? Well, you know, being in the field of treatment for addictions, one of the things I heard so much was people would come in and they relapsed during COVID. Well, you know, it was COVID's fault. You know, this wouldn't have happened if it hadn't been for COVID. I wasn't able to reach out to anybody else to keep me sober. Gee, that sounds kind of like this, doesn't it? It's because this and this and this. No, COVID didn't make anybody relapse, didn't make anybody use. I mean, I heard that many of times too. Well, my drinking or my using got really bad during COVID because it was COVID. It was COVID. No, it wasn't. The problem was all of my distractions, all of the things outside of me that I have used to protect me from being just with me, got ripped away. That was the problem. I couldn't distract me anymore. I just had to be with me. And most of us found that to be incredibly uncomfortable. And so we did what we know how to do. We went online shopping. Good old Amazon probably made a friggin' fortune during that time, right? We've got all these food delivery trucks now, or food delivery services, right? I don't even have to go out and shop. I can just sit back and eat and not move, right? I can pick up a chemical because the liquor stores are still open, and I can guarantee you the dealers did not stop dealing. So we found ways to dampen the discomfort of being in my own skin. Because this is where I have spent my life, and I've come to believe this is who I am. And I do nothing to actually support this. The perfectionist is that person that is either right or it's wrong. They see everything in black and white, which is a problem if you're like working an improvement program. Because for a perfectionist, there is no improvement. You're either right or you're wrong. And that makes growth a bit difficult. Because who wants to be wrong? You know, if I've got a choice between feeling like I'm right or feeling like I'm wrong, I'll choose right? And most of us would. And for a perfectionist, growth and change can be a real challenge. And being around a perfectionist can be a bit of a problem. Because for a perfectionist, there's right and wrong, and then there's my way, which of course is always right. Because perfection is defined by who? So if we've got 5 perfectionists in this room, we're going to all have 5 different opinions about what's perfect. And of course, I'm right. Just ask me. So for the perfectionist, very often that really is a bit of a struggle in the relationships because they oftentimes come across as very demanding. And if they happen to be paired with a caretaker, then they tend to be very critical. But only because they love you and want to help. Or at least that's what they tell themselves. But what it really is again, feeding my need. If I'm not perfect, if I can't get you to see that I am perfect, if I can't get you to do things the way I think is perfect, you hear a few control issues here? Then I don't have value. I don't have value. So even though it feels like I'm trying to control you with my need for you to be perfect, it's really about me and my need to feel like I'm worthwhile, that I matter, that I have value. Because one of the commonalities with all of this is the emptiness inside, the fear inside, that maybe I'm really not enough. And when you've got that as a core, who wants to go inside and play with that for a while? We protect ourselves because we're afraid it might be true. It isn't. But we've spent our whole lives being afraid that it might be. And this is how we protect ourselves. The tap dancer is not this, shuffle ball chain. I think that's how you do that. I don't remember now, it's been so many years. The tap dancer is that person who avoids commitment. Commitment feels like a cage, feels really uncomfortable, don't want to commit to too much of anything. You know, they're that person for whom the grass is always greener somewhere else. You know, life will be good when I get that job. Life will be great when I get to that new car. I'll be happy when I get that promotion. So happiness and okayness is always out there somewhere. It's never now. Right now, where I'm at right now. So they're always projecting out into the future. And so again, it makes it really kind of hard to be in an intimate relationship because intimacy is about now. Not tomorrow, but now. And so again, the codependency robs us of the opportunity to have truly intimate relationships where people really know who we are deep down. Because this allows me to continue to avoid it myself, much less protecting me from showing you. So all of these roles become self-sustaining. They become who we think we are, and we believe it. We believe our worth is just going out and helping more people. But here's my question to you. Is it ever enough? If you're a primary caretaker, is it ever enough? Can you help enough people that you can finally say, okay, all right, I did it. I'm good now. Yeah, no. Same thing with people pleasing. Is it ever enough? Are there ever enough people who care about me, who like me, who approve of me? Can I ever get enough? Can I keep enough people happy? If I'm a compulsive performer, I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about it. One of the docs a few months ago, he was in his late 70s, early 80s, and he couldn't not go back to work. You know, he couldn't. He couldn't. And that's, again, that compulsiveness. Couldn't. He couldn't not do it. that compulsive doingness. And there's an element of compulsion about all of these behaviors that we're talking about. An element of compulsion. If not allowed to do it, I'm uncomfortable. If I offer to help and you say no, there's a little bit of, a little discomfort that happens with that. If you're the one person out of the 100 that goes, it was okay. Oh, I didn't please everybody. If it's a martyr, and you go, your problems aren't really that bad. Oh, what do you mean? Let me tell you about them some more. Whatever it is, there's that compulsion that's underlying it that says that I have to. And again, that ties into this being the primary addiction, the baseline addiction. Because all of this creates tremendous discomfort inside. And at some point, we all have to find ways to relieve ourselves. And we do. Some of those ways are healthy. Some of those ways, not so much. But the key there is that it's to give us relief, not from this, but from this. This is what creates my discomfort. The beliefs that I have about me that formed when I was knee-high to a grasshopper, when I didn't know, I had no way of knowing that Mommy and Daddy weren't telling me to go to my room because I was bad, but because they had other things to do. I had no way of knowing that. And so that becomes a foundation upon which these things are built. Now, the good news is that we have lots of A programs. We have lots of books out there. I mean, we are living in an age of self-help, right? Go on YouTube. My goodness, there are all kinds of resources on YouTube. Books are coming out all the time. Speaking of which, I will have a book coming out on codependency probably in September, maybe October. So the couple of things I would like to say to you as I kind of tie things up, because I'm trying to keep it within this hour, is codependency is normal, folks. It's totally normal. Everybody's got a touch. Some of us have bigger touches than others, but we've all got some. And just because it's normal doesn't make it healthy. It raises, if you happen to have the disease of addiction, it raises the likelihood of a relapse. Because again, one of the things about drugs, they work. Until they don't. Those of us, like myself, in my family, one of our ways to give ourselves to numb our feelings was to eat. And so that is a continual one of my struggles, because my first thing is I want to reach for some food, and it's usually not celery, unfortunately. So we all have ways in which we do our best to give ourselves some relief from this, from living in that triangle. Some of them are, like I said, some of them are healthy, some of them aren't. If you can identify or have identified some of yours that are not so healthy, there's loads of help out here, to begin shifting those patterns. Because just because it's been that way doesn't mean it has to be. Codependency robs us of connecting with who we really are.
And recovery offers me a way home. When I say home, I mean home. Home. Any thoughts or questions? I have managed to come in right there in the hour bar.
Thank you very much. Thank you all very much.